Oh, the internet's acting stupid. It's probably not going to work right. But if it is working right, then let me say this. Number one, I suggest you don't talk to the police. If they ask you questions, don't say a word. If they're going to arrest you, they're going to arrest you. The more you say, the more you can incriminate yourself if you're doing something you're supposed to be doing. That being said, if you do want to talk to the police, if you decide, well, I want to talk to the police, do not make statements or make as few statements as possible. Make any, if you're required to say something like identify yourself, for example, then do so, obviously. But don't make any statements outside of what you're legally obligated to do. Now then, you can ask all the questions you want because questions can't incriminate you, even if you are doing something. So that's what you have to do. Ask them questions. What's gonna number one? Well, record them while you're asking them questions because here's what's gonna happen. It is very rare that you find a cop with an IQ over 105, and the reason being is the government. And the reason being is the government is because it's like this. It costs money to train police, just like it costs money to train other specialized workers. If you got a freaking Einstein working in the police department making 60,000 a year, eventually, obviously, because this person is intelligent and he's got like IQ of like 160, that wait a minute, this job sucks. These people are horrible. I shouldn't be here. I'm gonna go make more money doing something that's more capable that I'm more capable of doing that fits who I am. As a result, the government spends a bunch of money on training, equipment, yada 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 yada. And then this person will leave because they're more capable. They can go do a better job. Obviously, they're not going to stay in that job making that amount of money when they can get a better job making more money. So, as a result, you end up you're limited in the intellectual prowess of the cops you run across. So what this means and what I'm saying is it's not always that they're intentionally just like giving you a hard time. Sometimes they're legitimately stupid. Sometimes they legitimately don't know the law. I mean, actually, a lot of times they don't know the law. Sometimes they legitimately think they're doing right or they're doing their job and they're really not. So then there's also that you have to worry about. That's why the law is important. You know, I've been told the law isn't important. Good to see you. I've been told the law isn't important, but it is because when I say ask questions, that's mainly what you want to ask questions about. If they're saying you broke such and such law, well, do you know the statute and in what way? And then or find another example. Well, if somebody did this, would they be breaking the law? And actually question them, make sure they understand it. And if they, here's the thing, you're either get arrested or you're not. But if you're recording, at least you know either A, they understand it, so you're being arrested for a legitimate reason, or B, they don't understand it, so later when you show other people, they can see and agree with you that these cops don't know what the hell they're doing. Another thing is you can cuss a cop out all day. You can call them a fucking bitch, you can call them a jackass, you can call them whatever you want, but you cannot scream at them. And this includes non-cuss words. Do not scream at police. Do not yell at police. Then they'll just say you're being disorderly, you're obstructing justice, whatever the fuck it is. They'll try to antagonize you to make you do something to rally you up. You have to understand this. As a result, you cannot allow that to happen. You have to keep a straight, calm tone, like this straight tone. Do not, even if you cuss them out, you say you're a fucking bitch, dude. You know you're an asshole. You can talk like that. They're not going to do anything. You know they'll want to, and I mean, and technically they could get mad because I've actually, a long time ago, before is to get off, hate to get off topic a bit, but it's sort of relevant. A long time ago, I got a felony assault on a law enforcement officer because I wasn't recording and I was talking. I wasn't even cussing at the time. I was just responding in a way that the officer didn't like. And he grabbed me. And when he grabbed me, I instinctively put him in a headlock. And I'll admit that part, but he grabbed me. Okay? He grabbed me because I said something he didn't like. That's a problem. And I got a felony for that because then we go to court and he said, well, I lunged at him for no reason because I totally go around lunging at police for no reason. That's what I do, right? But anyways, I didn't have a video. I mean, who are they going to believe? And they believed him. So, no. I don't think it's cops that are my enemy. I think it's stupid people. And sadly, that the government only hires somewhat lowly capable people for most government jobs because they'll go somewhere else. If they're really intelligent, they'll be scientists. They'll be professors. They'll go do something related to intellectual acuity. They won't be police. No offense to police, that's just the reality of it. They're obviously, if you're really intelligent and can do something else, you're not going to be a cop. So it's not police specifically that are my enemy, and it's not the government that's my enemy. It's anti-intellectual influence of people in position of power who also just so happen to have positions of power that allow them to rule over the masses. So it's not specifically cops or government. It's ignorance ruling the citizenry, and then the citizenry willfully putting the ignorant people in there. So it's a larger issue, but that's not relevant to this conversation. You know, I know people don't like being cussed at, but I also don't like being harassed by police for literally walking down the street and just being myself and recording stuff. You know how often I get harassed for recording in public, literally outside by police. I mean, just my YouTube, you can see for literally that's it. I mean, that's a lot of y'all get that. Like, why? Well, no, I don't have problems with authority. I have problems with ignorant authority. I mean, I think that's a very clear clarifier there. Like, okay, if you're intelligent enough and the reason you're imposing whatever it is, protocol, procedure, makes sense and is logical and actually results in an outcome that you intend and that everybody is helped by, then okay, that's cool. But when you're sitting here telling me that the war on drugs is making this country a safer place and that because drugs are bad, you should throw people in jail for, you know, smoking a plant or doing whatever it is they do, then you're telling me that facts don't matter to you, statistics don't matter to you, information does not matter to you, appeals to emotion matter to you, which is a logical fallacy. That's what you're telling me. I don't work that way. My brain, all that matters is cause and effect. This is what happens. This is the outcome. Now, if your desired outcome is to make things better and or to end, you know, the mass epidemic of drug usage in this country, and you're saying, well, let's do a war on drugs, and you have decades of data that shows that the war on drugs contributes to the usage of drugs by creating a situation in which people in poverty, who are also shown by studies a correlation of drug usage and crime and stuff, if you're making that happen, then you're perpetuating that cycle. So basically, the war on drugs has created the opioid epidemic we got now. You know, that's not me saying, oh, well, drugs are good. Okay, I don't even know shit about most drugs. But what I do know is that since what it is, the 70s, we've been throwing people in prison for this drug issue, and it's gotten a whole lot worse. And now I see people walking around like zombies, rolling around in the street, and throwing them in jail hasn't helped a darn thing. Now, anyways, back to cussing at cops. Well, I've never been arrested for cussing at cops because I know how to do it. But that's what I'm saying. You have to keep your voice low. If you raise your voice, it's not the cussing that get you for it. It's disorderly because you're drawing attention. But anyways, the whole point is when you're talking to cops, back to relate this back to the original topic, when you're talking to cops, don't answer questions, just ask questions. Record and ask questions. If you did something, they're going to arrest you. They're not going to give you, you know, sometimes you'll get stopped, for example, and the cop will be like, oh, I'll just give you a warning. Usually when they give you a warning, they actually goofed up somewhere and they just want to make you think that they're helping you. But like a lot of the last people I've seen that got a warning literally were pulled over for no fucking reason, and the cop made up a reason, and they knew they were making up a reason. So they're like, well, I'll just give you a warning. You get that taillight fixed. Like, my taillight's not out. It's like, well, I disagree with you. And then you go look later, and it's working. Well, you can't prove that it wasn't out, like, way back then, and that's why they do that. They know how that works. They do this job every day. Though the judges in the courts and all that, they have the same thing. The attorneys, the prosecutors, they're all familiar with the process. They're also familiar with abuses of the process that they can get away with because you can't prove. Now, this goes back into, you know, this is off topic, but fuck it, it's a live stream. I'll go ahead and bounce off that now. But this goes into polygraphs and polygraph testing and stuff like that. You know, I've noticed that they do polygraph testing in law enforcement for the FBI and all types of other stuff. Well, hold on. Since you're going to ask that, and before I get to that, what's wrong with answering questions? That's a good question. The problem with answering questions to police is that the more you say, as in answering a question is a statement, it's not a question. They pick and choose how they construe that. As in whatever you're saying to them, they'll write it down however they hear it, regardless of whether it's what you said or not. Okay? So now you've made a statement and they've interpreted it the way they wish and wrote it down on paper. When you ask a question, it's not something that can be construed as a statement. It's a very specific question. What crime did I allegedly commit? Am I being detained? Am I free to go? What is your badge number? How long does a stop for what the crime you allege I committed normally take? That one will really throw them off. That'll get them confused. So you have to think outside the box, but ask them questions. But when they start saying, "Well, why are you here?" It's like, I just want to be here. And then he'll write down, because if you don't want to tell them why you're there because it's none of their business, because you have that right, well, now they're like, person is being, how do you say? Person is not cooperating. Just because you don't answer a question, you're not cooperating? Yeah, that's what they'll put, because now you've made a statement. You've made a statement and they interpret it as they wish. So now if you're asking a question, do you believe I'm cooperating? And then he says, no, I don't believe you're cooperating. Well, why don't you think I'm cooperating? And then he'll have to articulate why he doesn't think you're cooperating. Again, the more you make them talk, it becomes clear that they don't know what it is they're doing most of the time anyway. And there's a reason for that. It's a very fair reason, too. The 13th Amendment expanded slavery. It did not abolish it. If you look at the law books, like, and here we got the Courts and Judicial Proceedings, the Maryland Rules, the Rules of Criminal Procedure. I mean, there's like this much law books. There's like this much, that big. Okay? These people can't even memorize the Bible. I mean, most people can. I don't even think I can memorize the Bible. I mean, I know it pretty well, but I mean, that's what I mean. Like, the Bible's like this thick, the law book's like this thick. And you think that the citizens are going to be able to follow the law when, like, they can't even memorize a book that they follow religiously? You think they're going to be able to know every law in that book and follow it? No, it's a setup. It's a scam. It's a Ponzi scheme to get more prisoners, which is modern day slavery. That's what that is. Well, the thing is, then you're agreeing with me that you shouldn't answer many questions, because you said I hardly answer questions. Well, that's what I just said. I hardly answer questions too, because I understand making statements, which is answering questions as a statement, are often misconstrued by police. Sadly, because I have seen them do it. I am not a First Amendment auditor. I have been screwed by the police and learned my lesson on all kinds of different situations. I learned the hard way why not to answer the door for police when you're not, even if you're not doing anything wrong. I learned the hard way how not to make a bunch of statements even when you've not done anything. I learned the hard way not to scream at police when you're cussing. These are all things I learned the hard way. So I understand them because I made these mistakes before. So it's not one of those situations. No, I've never been locked. No, I've gotten in trouble. That's why I realized what not to do. So if you want to be fair, I feel like I have a better understanding of what to do and what not to do to not get arrested while still expressing and exercising your rights. The problem being communicative is when your opposition is not verbally prepared for your verbal output. I mean, it's hard. I talk how I talk. I don't know why I talk the way I talk. It's how I talk. I got Asperger's, maybe that's why. But I talk the way I talk. Like, that's how I talk. I can't, like, dumb it down anymore. So oftentimes I find that if I try to communicate, I can do it legitimately. And because of whatever bias they got, they'll just assume I'm saying something totally different, even if it's not even close to what I'm saying. So I find at times my articulation, being as it is, on the level it is, creates a barrier between myself and the police, in which they get offended and feel like I'm attacking them solely because I speak in the manner I speak, and that's how I naturally speak. I believe that the other guy, was it Salty's Nuts or something like that? Mr. Salty's Nuts called me out for no reason yesterday or the day before or something like that. And he thought I was intentionally going my way to use big words to confuse him or something like that, or he made the insinuation that I was doing such. I naturally speak like this. That's the thing. And when you naturally speak like this, that's something else, believe it or not, that the police harass you for. I don't know why. Again, they think that I don't know. They just think that you're going out of your way to try to be Mr. Smarty Pants to cause them problems. But the reality is, police do bad things because they're normal people. Like people are like, oh yeah, bro, police are normal people. Okay, well, normal people make mistakes. Okay, number one, normal people get mad. Normal people aren't perfect, and normal people do illegal things all the time in their life, even if by accident. Okay, so if police are normal people, like these people admit, then we have to like hold them to the same standard as we would any other individual walking outside, any other citizen, because police are not perfect. Okay, so the problem is we have people that jump on both sides of this. Oh, police are normal people, but then like, oh, well, he couldn't have possibly made a mistake. The person had to be doing something wrong. It's like the cognitive dissonance is horrible. Well, of course they're extremely dangerous, but I mean, really going outside is extremely dangerous. It just depends. But the fact of the matter is, and my understanding is, the less statements you make, the better. The more questions you ask, the better. The more recording you do, the better. And the other good thing about recording is you're holding your phone like this. Guess what? They can't say your hands went anywhere. You know, they can't say that you're reaching for something. So when you record and hold your phone out, not only are you accomplishing, you know, they might say put your hands up, just do like this, but you're showing your hands, you're not reaching for anything, and you're still getting everything documented. All filming has a purpose of the police. Every police interaction should be documented. They have body cams, but here's something I've figured out, and this is something you got to look out for. I have realized they abuse those too. Here in Maryland, here's something I've seen them do. There'll be two cops. Only one of them will have a body cam. One will stand in one place, and the other will walk off somewhere and start talking to somebody. Now you don't know what this person's saying, and at times you don't know what this person's doing, because one cop has the body cam and the other cop knows to be the one to walk off and do whatever it is they're supposed to be doing. This places the citizen in a bit of a disadvantage if they don't have a recording, because then the officer is not only recording, he's utilizing it in a manner he can manipulate it for his narrative, just like they can do the writing, which is concerning. So it's more important than ever to document all police interactions, to record them, and et cetera and so forth. But anyways, like I said, I don't suggest most people talk to the police. If you think you're capable of talking to the police, make as few statements as possible, ask as many questions as you can, record the entire interaction. Remember dates, times, get their badge number if you can. If they don't want to give it, try to get their cruiser number. And when you talk to internal affairs, give them the cruiser number and the time that it was responding, and then they should be able to figure out who it is, which is a pain in the butt, but sometimes they have a bad habit of not identifying. And some cops will tell you there's no law saying I have to identify. Yes, it's called the First Amendment, and it's the right to petition a government for redress of grievances, which generally is petition the legislature, but that starts somewhere, as in you have to start from the bottom, and as you don't get the results you need, you slowly move it up. If they're stopping you at the bottom, you can never move it up because they stopped you already. So that's how they're violating the First Amendment petition clause, in my opinion. That's my understanding of it, and why they have to identify themselves. If you request they identify themselves and provide a badge number, because you have the right to file a complaint. And if you need them to identify themselves to do so, then you have that right. That's the First Amendment. That's why I think that regardless of there no be directly law, officers must show their ID. Yes, there is. It's the First Amendment. Because preventing a citizen from filing a complaint by preventing them from having your identifying information is in fact preventing them from petitioning the government for a redress of their grievances about the government. So, you know, it's very important, again, I believe, to understand the law. Not just say you understand, but I mean, you got to read the statutes, read the statutory law, the penal code, wherever it is where you are. Not just read it, you have to understand it. Because I've seen in the past, I know Pissed Off, I don't know if anybody knows Pissed Off Taxpayer. He went and recorded in the magistrate's office in Pennsylvania. That was stupid. You're not supposed to record in there. There are legitimate places in buildings that you're not allowed to record for purposes of safety, and the magistrate's office is one of them. You're also not allowed to record in the courtroom or the court building in my state. I see that's different in Texas, because I thought that was cool as shit, by the way, that I saw cameras in the courtroom and stuff. But in my state, you're not even allowed to have a camera recording or taking pictures in a court building, and never mind the courtroom. When you go in the courtroom, you got to turn your phone off. That's how it works here. So they all like denying record requests. They don't respond to record requests is the biggest issue I've had. And I've had this issue in multiple states that, like, I'll put in a records request and they'll just ignore it. and then I'll remind them that there's a record request, and then they'll respond with some like largely incomplete record, and then I have to do it again, and then wait another 30 days, and then half the time they'll claim that there was no missing record, so then I have to fight to get them to look for it when I know that there's something missing. It's just it's a headache. It's a real headache. But I mean, I'm pretty sure it's not just this government does that. I'm pretty sure most governments go out of their way to not be very responsive about those records any more than they have to by law, and even then they look for loopholes to like delay it as long as possible, hoping you give up. And again, the government shouldn't be able to do that, but the government does as the government does. So they do. And I believe they'll continue to do that. So, in the sense where an honest gas says the law doesn't matter, they'll arrest you anyway, sometimes that is true. But at least if you know what the law says, when you fight it through whatever remedy you have by law to fight it, you can articulate your understanding even prior to the event transfolding. As a result, a judge will take what you're saying more seriously than some sovereign citizen in court citing the Articles of Confederation. If you cite a legitimate law that's like on the books right now, and then you can articulate like what it says, and especially if you can give an example of another situation where that law was invoked or that statute was invoked in a case law or in some other proceeding, an official proceeding, then that's good. It'll looks good for the judge. I mean, this is how things work, the process. But I don't agree with honest gas that you could just be the nicest guy in the world and that the police will never violate your rights just for doing First Amendment audits. Because for whatever reason, some people really hate being recorded. Like it seems like for no reason. Like they'll literally attack you for seeing you, even if it's in public. Like you can literally be walking outside recording down the street, and people will start harassing you for that, saying, "Oh, why are you recording me?" When you're not recording them specifically, you're just recording everything on that street at that moment. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like some genetic thing, something deeply ingrained in people's heads. But some people, for whatever reason, really freaking hate being recorded. Even if they're not doing anything, it's really weird. Because, like, in my understanding, if you're in public, then you can be recorded. Shit, you don't think the government's recording? Matter of fact, I'm going to cite my own town. There's 150, and they're doing more. 150 cameras all around this city. This is only a city of about 40,000 people. Okay, I saw a newspaper article. The police chief was talking about watching people at night like it was daytime in 4K resolution, and then getting more cameras. That is the world we live in now. Okay, so if you're in public, expect to be recorded. Now, I get if you're at home, you shouldn't expect people to be recording you without your permission, especially if it's your home and somebody else is there. But okay, but if you're in public, you're going to be recorded. Okay, I mean you're going to. It's just assume that. Okay, the police aren't going to give you a lawyer. So if you ask a police for a lawyer, they're just going to tell you don't need a lawyer. Don't listen to them. They can tell you whatever they want, but obviously you need a lawyer. But they're going to try to convince you that you don't need a lawyer and you should talk to them. You have to invoke your Fifth Amendment. You have to invoke your Fifth Amendment. You don't say, I need a lawyer. You say, I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment, and I don't wish to say anything else until consulting with my attorney. If you do want to say something. Don't say, give me an attorney, because that's not their job. Then they're just going to try to convince you why you don't need one, and that they're not going to give you one because you don't need one. And again, silence can be golden, but at the same time, I found out that because most police aren't that intelligent, that the more you ask them questions, the more they make themselves look like straight up fools. And that, obviously, if you're going to court for something, it doesn't help when the judges look like idiots. I mean, not the judges, I'm sorry. The police look like idiots in front of the judge. So if you can make them go off the deep end and act like idiots, then generally the judges don't like that. I mean, I've seen judges ream police too. I mean, just the same like they would anybody else. I mean, it's a good idea to have a lawyer, but poor people can't always have a lawyer. I mean, this is the thing. There's a problem in this country anyway when it comes to indigent individuals and their ability to defend themselves in criminal proceedings. And then civil proceedings are sometimes even worse than misdemeanor criminal proceedings, and you're not even entitled to an attorney in those matters. So I think this country is kind of mistaken in its understanding of who should be entitled to defense based on what. I'm not an anarchist. I mean, I'm a left libertarian, but I'm not an anarchist. I mean, I've been called an anarchist, but I understand the government. I just don't like, for one, ignorant people telling me what to do when it doesn't make any sense, and two, people saying that what they're doing is helping when it's actually hurting, and everybody can see that, and like even they can see that, but they're denying it. So then you're lying to me, and then denying that you're lying to me, and then I'm proving that you're lying to me, and then you're continuing to lie to me and denying that you're lying to me. So like I in any individual, I cannot stand that. But yeah, if you can get a lawyer, get one. If you can afford a lawyer, get one. But generally, you can't afford a lawyer if you're a poor individual in this country. So therefore, you have to know all this shit in advance. It's not your attorney's not going to tell you because you don't have one until you get charged with something. That's how public defenders work, and that's how it works for poor people. Now, individuals that are more entitled and have a little bit more money, they can have lawyers on standby to consult pretty much anytime they want or pretty regularly. Well, the thing is, the police will fuck with you. I mean, and that's my more concern. I mean, I don't go out of my way to like go fuck with them, but like I can literally go out in front of my house and like report on some actual event going on, the crime for my community, and they'll start bothering me for recording. It's really insane. Well, it depends on the attorney. Part of the problem is that a lot of attorneys, especially if it's in the same area, like they know each other, so they're not going to step on each other's toes, but they don't want to have a poor relationship or like have it come back at them later in some other way. Same time, just you'll tell your attorney not to do certain things. Same thing when your attorney tells you not to do certain things because you'll piss off the judge, knowing damn well that judges are supposed to be biased and unbiased and impartial. Well, that's not the real world, and that's not how that works. And your attorney knows that. So again, I mean, I understand the whole saying it will be respectful. Like that, be respectful in court to that judge. Then police don't fucking matter. They're gonna arrest you or they're not gonna arrest you. You don't have to respect them. I mean, you don't have to respect the judge either, but that's not gonna go well for you. And here's the thing: if the judge is wrong, it's a lot harder to fix than if a cop is wrong, because you have to file a judiciary disabilities complaint, or that's what's called here, a judicial complaint. You have to file a motion. You have to pay for an attorney to deal with it, unless you can do it yourself, and then people aren't going to take you seriously because you're not an attorney. It's a big mess. Like, it's bad enough to fuck with the police. Do not fuck with the judges. I mean, I say this, but I'm saying I got to like post right now on Twitter, like actively calling out a specific judge. But this fight's been going on for 2-3 years now. That's different. This is a wiretapping case, and that judge doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. But I'm not actually like threatening him or like saying he's doing anything like illegal. I'm just calling him stupid. Well, he is. I mean, that's the case. I mean, we had these district court judges that used to be bad attorneys and now they're bad judges. I mean, when you get bad attorneys elected to be judge, and they're just bad attorneys that are now judges, so obviously it's gonna their lack of knowledge of the law or inability to properly interpret the law becomes an issue. There are better things to do than be an activist. I mean, that's subjective. There's also better things to do than not be an activist, like being an activist. I mean, it just depends. For one, you got all types of different activism. Some things are more important than others. Obviously, there's some people that could be activists for ridiculous things, like we should stop using beetles to make artificial dyes or something like that. There could be some. I don't believe that. I just made something up, but I'm saying like somebody could believe that and like go the way of saying, yeah, stop using beetles to make our artificial dyes. Beetles don't deserve to be crushed. Like that shit sounds insane, but like some people could possibly believe that, and that's my point. I mean, all types of different people believe all types of different things. And there's all types of different types of activism. Now, some is more important than others. Some activism helps like the citizens as a whole, and some activism seems to help like small specific groups. Some activism doesn't help at all, and some activism is under the guise of activism is actually not activism. It's meant to make people look bad that are in activist groups through moles of getting inside. It's not just the government. I think private citizens do this as well. They'll get in some group to fuck with people or to troll on the low and pretend to be part of that group just so they can know what's going on and relay to other people. But I mean, yeah, you could say there's better things to do than being an activist, but I mean that's your opinion. I mean, somebody else could say no, there's nothing better to do than being an activist. That's how I want to live my life. I mean, that's cool. It's each his own. That's how that works. I can be sensible. I try to be sensible, but I am human, and I have my buttons, and I have my triggers, and I have my tolerances, just like everybody else. My thresholds, and again, I think that a lot of these police, what they do is they trigger people, like they rile them up, like they intentionally antagonize them to try to get a response, so they'll break the law so they can punish them, and that's not right. And I believe that that a lot of Padilla, like you can say, yeah, he did it himself, but like, yeah, I get what he did. He shouldn't have like acted like that, but I mean, it wasn't really illegal. At the same time, he's not a public servant. He's not an officer of the law. An officer of the law should be held to a higher standard than that. And then they say, well, equal protection of the laws. Well, 14th Amendment grants us the right to equal protection of the laws. Already, if you kill a law enforcement officer, you're getting capital murder. So, um, if you assault one, you're getting a higher charge than if you assaulted a normal person. So already, there's there's no equality there. So if they're going to be held to a higher standard, that needs to be consistent. So if you're going to give, if I hit them and you're going to charge me worse than I hit like anybody else, then yes, you need to. If they screw up, you need to make sure they're held accountable because you're clearly holding them to a higher standard. That's an implication. You can infer that you hold them to a higher standard through the fact that you punish somebody more harshly for attacking them than attacking somebody else. Because you want to protect them, which means you're allowing them to be held to a different standard. Violates the 14th Amendment. But if you're going to do it, then be consistent. I don't know. I just talk. I don't really think about the context of my comments. I don't know what was difficult prior to understanding the context of them either. I don't know. I mean, to me, it's just thinking and reasoning, and something's reasonable or it's not reasonable. Some cause has some effect, or it has some other effect. I mean, it really doesn't matter what opinions are for the most part. It matters what will cause what to happen. So I get what you're saying. Like, this is how you more likely to prevent getting arrested. But I think that would say you say how to not get arrested. I think what you're more so mean is how to be more likely not to be arrested while doing these, because I don't think there's any and there's a I don't think you can say, well, you don't be arrested if you do this. And I'm not necessarily saying you're saying that, but you do give off that impression that you're pretty much won't get arrested as long as people do exactly how you do, and I don't agree with that. Wait a minute, what are you talking about? Where are you in a public area with no expectation of privacy? F so no wiretapping. I don't understand that comment. I'm sorry. It seems as a slightly broken English. No offense to you. I just don't understand it. Where are you in a public area? Where are you in a public area with no expectation of privacy? F so no wiretapping. Yeah, sorry. I don't. If you could rephrase that, a DMC 68. I don't really know what you're saying, or I would respond to it. Um, Now, as far as wiretapping goes, there's a few issues there that are concerning. Number one, it's not illegal to record the conversations without permission of all parties. Conversations it's legal to intercept a communication, a wire or electronic communication without consent of all parties. Communication. Number two, in my state at least, I live in Maryland. No, not all party consent states are the same. What I mean by that, look at the Penal Code of California and as it relates to its eavesdropping and invasion of privacy laws, as it relates to recording one's own phone calls. They actually have a law against it, especially for confidential communications. Maryland does not have that law. Maryland jacked the Federal Wiretap Act and just changed the definition of oral communication, as well as the definition of as the requirements for well, it's not a definition really. It's requirements for the parties that need to consent to the interception of a communication. But an intercept by default has to be a third party, uh, done by a third party. That's how it's an intercept. That's like saying that the quarterback threw the football to the wide receiver caught intercepted his own pass that was intended for him. That doesn't even make sense. That's the problem. They're using intercept and record interchangeably, and they're not interchangeable words. The interception is the acquisition of a communication. Recording is the preservation of a communication already acquired. For example, when you're like a musician and you're in a band and you're the lead singer and you're singing in the microphone and it's coming out the speakers, it's not necessarily being recorded, but that microphone is intercepting that communication. It's not recording it, but it's intercepting it because that's what that means. There's a difference in those words. People need to learn that. That being said, there's also case law on the matter, explicitly explaining the differentiation between interception and recording. Again, if you look at California's penal code, it's also an all-party consent state. It says eavesdrop or record, or monitor or record is another one. Eavesdrop, and monitor are other words that are used synonymously with the word intercept. What is not synonymous with intercept is record. The reason Maryland mistakenly believes that these recordings that people make of their own phone calls are intercepts is because all the case law comes from federal case law, and all those are third-party intercepts. So they use recording synonymously only because the recording itself is the act that's leading to the intercept, but that's not true when you're a party to the communication on the telephone. So they're misunderstanding what the law says. Furthermore, Maryland's going to have to reconcile the fact that the only definition that changed out of the definitions from the federal definition was oral communication, which does not pertain to phone calls, which are wire communications. So the death penalty, I don't know. I don't really care. I know that sounds weird, but I really, there's nothing. I don't have enough information on it. Number one. Number two, I think some people deserve to die. I know that's subjective, but cause and effect. I think I personally can see that some people being here is counterintuitive to our ability as a whole in this world of humanity to progress. So, it's hard for me to say I'm against it when I think that some people really shouldn't be here. I wouldn't kill them. I think the world would be a better place without them. That's just, so I don't know. I think that we use it too harshly, and in circumstances we probably not as much these days as we used to. And I think we use it in cases where there's not enough evidence more than we should. But I think if there's a murderer that committed an atrocious crime, and let's say we got foolproof evidence, like it's on video or something crazy like that, then if the jury votes to give him the death penalty, then give him the death penalty. But outside of circumstances where there's 100% proof that somebody committed a crime, I don't think so. There's too much likelihood for it not to be actual duly convicted person in reality, rather than through the courts. I mean, through the courts they're duly convicted, but in reality they were not duly convicted. But I don't know. Death penalty is not a topic that I spend much time focusing on because, number one, I don't think my opinion does much with it. Number two, I don't have strong enough opinions on it to speak on it in the manner in which people will really listen to me about my opinion of it. And number three, again, I think some people probably, if they weren't here, the world would be a better place. I mean, that's just how I feel. It's just the truth. You want my honest opinion. Oh, well, what they're saying, they're alleging that I recorded my own phone calls, and that me recording my own phone calls was wiretapping, because they're saying that recording communication without all parties' consent to the recording is unlawful. Problem is, that's not what's unlawful. The problem is it's unlawful to intercept a wire, oral, electronic communication without all parties consenting to the interception of the communication. The problem is when you're talking on the telephone, I mean, this is, number one, a telephone is not considered electronic mechanical other device under the statutory definition listed in 10-401. Number one. But number two, when you're talking on the telephone, you can't say you don't know the telephone is intercepting your communication because you're talking on the telephone. You can't say you don't know that other person is intercepting your communication because you're talking to the other person. You're not just screaming saying, "Hey, dude," and then the person saying, "What's going on?" You're talking on the telephone. So that, number one, that their telephone is intercepting. Number one, that your telephone's intercepting communication. Number two, that their telephone's intercepting communication. Number three, that they're intercepting communication. So where's the intercept? When somebody records, there is none. That's what I'm saying. There's a reason nobody has been convicted in the state of Maryland ever, and nobody's been charged since Linda Tripp. And they didn't move forward with that. And I believe that what she did was totally legal, and they knew that. And I've actually called the FBI, and I told the FBI that I think Maryland's known for 20 years that recording your own phone calls is legal. The problem is Bill Clinton pulled some strings and got people to believe otherwise because he went all through that shit with Monica Lewinsky and when Linda Tripp recorded Monica Lewinsky. But the bigger problem is, and what some people don't remember, Chinagate, I forget the other gates. There was a couple other scandals that Linda Tripp recorded information and phone calls on as well. You know, if it came out that this whole time it's been lawful to record your own telephone calls in the state of Maryland, which I'm telling you, I'm contending that it is, then all of those phone calls, those communications, and any others that anybody has made recordings of these communications with the president, with Bill Clinton, over the years are totally disclosable because it's only illegal to disclose intercept in violation of the subtitle. So if it's not an intercept in violation of the subtitle, then it's entirely legally disclosable, which would mean that basically if my case comes out that and it's found that you're allowed to legally record your phone calls, which you are, then a lot of big people with a lot of money are going to have a lot of conversations come into the light that they probably don't want. So their big money interests are blocking me right now, and others that are trying to explain this to people. But that's okay because I think I've called the FBI 6 times in the last 2 years about that, about the Maryland wiretap thing and the police. The detective just testified in court the other day. He listened to hundreds of my phone recordings a couple of years ago. Recordings of my phone calls, rather, is what he said. I wasn't charged with hundreds of recordings of phone calls, you idiot. But they watch my stuff too. They've told me, but so they'll see this, but that's okay because if you look up the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, it details the 1986 amendment to the Federal Wiretap Act, in which electronic communications were added, storage devices. It was meant to keep up with the advancing technology. And along with the Wiretap Act, you're not supposed to steal people's phone calls, digital recordings of their phone calls. And if you look at what happened to Linda Tripp, you'll notice that part of why she got off is because she handed over those phone calls. If there was an immunity deal for her, then part of it was for her to hand over the tapes. Then what made them think they could come take them from me? They're supposed to ask me first. They didn't do that. Number one. Number two, the Department of State Police are the ones that are supposed to do it. The state is supposed to do it, not a local county. But I digress. All of that's really unimportant. Right now, as I stated, just keep a calm voice with the police. You can cuss at them all you want. Really. Call them all kinds of names. I mean, if it's disrespectful, but I mean at the same time, if they're stopping you and you know you're not doing anything, then they're harassing you, then they're being disrespectful to you. So it's really just giving what you're getting. So that's what I tell them. Like, if I'll give you what you give me. If you act like a dick to me, I'll be a dick to you. You treat me good, I'll treat you good. It's all it's your decision. It's never my decision how I treat somebody else. It's always their decision. That's what I say. It's always your decision how I treat you, and it's totally based on how you treat me. So to try to end this and to put this all together and to summarize it, you shouldn't talk to police, but if you so decide to talk to police, make as few statements as possible, record, ask questions, as many questions as possible. Don't ask stupid, irrelevant questions. When I say ask questions, I mean ask them questions about your detainment, what law they think you're breaking, with the statute, another examples of other people getting in trouble that they can relate to your situation, things like that. That's what I mean by ask questions, because I've realized that they usually can't answer them, but yet they're trying to enforce them, but they don't even understand them to begin with themselves. So, no. Maryland, number one, Maryland's not a two-party consent. It's an all-party consent state. Number two, not all party consent states are the same. All-party consent refers to interception of wire or electronic communication in Maryland. In California, all-party consent refers to the monitoring or recording or record, monitoring or recording. So not all state consent, all party consent states are the same. What matters is what the law says, what the statutes say, what the penal code said, etc. And the definition of oral communication is the only definition in Maryland that differs from the federal definitions. What this means is that unless you're charged with an oral communication in Maryland, the federal case law dictates what is and is not an interception of a wire or electronic communication. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like I said, it's legal to record your own phone calls in the state of Maryland. It's illegal to intercept a wire or electronic communication without all parties' consent to that communication. It's just important to distinguish the difference between the meaning of the word intercept as defined by law and the word record as used in the law. And a lot of people, they got this myth that going around like, oh, well, you got to give people, you got to ask people permission. No, you don't. The reason you hear that statement when you call like a business or like a government is because, again, what I'm saying is if it was the other person recording you, they could totally do that because you're talking to them. The problem is it's not them recording you, it's their boss. So it's a third party intercept by default, de facto. Anytime you record as a third party, any other parties, it's by de facto an intercept, an unlawful intercept by a third party. Because unless both of them people told you could do it. Anyways, what's actually protected in Maryland that's not protected federally is in-person private meetings. As in, you could have 50 people in a room with a closed door having a private meeting, and you can't record any of those people, any of them. Like even if they're talking to you, you cannot record them. And this is where we get into privacy rights, like expectation of privacy. The only definition that mentions privacy is oral communication, which is a private in-person conversation. Wire communication does not mention the privacy, and neither does electronic communication. It's only oral communication. So when you start talking about privacy, then in oral communication, then it deals with where you're at. As in, if you're in somebody's room, let's say you break into somebody's house, break into their room, in their bedroom, and they start recording you. And then you say later, well, they didn't have your consent and it was in a private place. No. The way it works is it was their private place. You didn't have your authorization to be there. So they can record you. You can't record them. That's how that works. There's a totally big misunderstanding of how these laws work, the eavesdrop laws. And the best way to explain it is this. You can't eavesdrop on yourself, but you can do things on other people's property you're not supposed to. When you're talking on the phone, it's your phone line, it's your property, you pay for it, and the person knows that you're intercepting communication with your telephone and that you're intercepting communication. So they're not the same thing. Look at every example in the state of Maryland. If you don't believe me, number one, nobody was charged, but in all the case law is always a third-party communication. A third-party interception. State versus Miles, for example, or Miles versus State. A guy took his Radio Shack scanner and recorded the conversation of two others committing a crime from the cell phone tower. That's a third-party intercept. He recorded the conversation of those other people. It doesn't matter. Somebody will say, well, if he was part of the communication, then he still couldn't have done it. No. He totally could have. But the problem is he intercepted the communication en route to its recipient. When you are the recipient, you can't do that because once it gets to you, you save it. That's different than somebody else taking it before it gets to you. I guess that's what's important to distinguish. An intercept is someone taking something before it gets to its goal. It's tampering with the line of the communication in order to obtain the communication. You can't do that when you're the intended recipient of the communication. Yep, I'm about to end up here anyways. Y'all have a nice day. Hopefully this will help somebody. Keep your voice down when talking to police. If you're going to cuss, darn sure make sure to keep your voice down. Make as few statements as possible. Ask as many questions as possible. Record and document all your encounters, including dates and times, names, and badge numbers when possible. Thank you. Have a good day.